my name is Angelica Moreno, and today I'm going to be presenting on drug patents and their monopolies. So this graphic shows the top 10 pharmaceutical companies across the world. As you can see, Johnson & Johnson is at the top. In 2015, they brought in over $70 billion in revenue, and that's including all of their pharmaceutical areas along with their household products. So there are some benefits to having the current patent system the way it is. For example, due to patent laws, every year major revenue generating drugs become off patent, which means that other companies are able to start manufacturing generics, and usually the generics are 80 to 85% lower than the original ones. Patent laws allow pharmaceutical companies to set their own prices. Essentially, they can set it as high as the market will allow, and a lot of times they do try to make sure that they can get as much money as possible during their patent period. For example, when generic drugs become available, 90% of the original drug no longer gets not funded, but bought. Increased funding allows scientists to focus on research and development, and it also provides more of a financial incentive. So if scientists are recruited by large pharmaceutical companies, they're going to have much higher salaries, leading to much more dedicated research and stuff because they're earning more money. Increased money funds the years of research and testing needed for FDA approval. The strict guidelines placed by the Federal Drug Administration require several years of testing in order to be cleared. So in order to do that, major pharmaceutical companies need a lot of revenue to create all those tests. This is another graphic that shows different major drugs and the revenue that they create on an annual basis that are going to be off patent in 2017. So there are some negative aspects to having the current laws as well. One fundamental issue with the drug patent scheme is that it encourages innovation only if patent holders anticipate that the developed drug will be highly profitable. That's why a lot of times many diseases that would only occur in developing countries aren't being funded, because a lot of companies rather spend their revenue researching blockbuster drugs such as Viagra. So where a majority of their money is being spent is marketing and advertisement. So Johnson & Johnson is the largest pharmaceutical company, and they spent $17.5 billion on advertisement, and in comparison, they only spent $8.2 billion on research and development. That's a huge disconnect just because of all of the different avenues that they do advertise in. Most innovations are produced by companies that are acquired by large pharmaceutical companies. So a lot of times the really big companies, instead of having their own research and development, they'll wait for a different company to come out with a new technology, then through acquisition, buy that intellectual property and have to do a little less of the legwork. Many pharmaceutical companies also create Me Too drugs, which are essentially slightly different copycats of already pre-existing drugs. So for example, that's why a lot of companies, most major pharmaceutical companies, come out with some type of antidepressant. A lot of them have the same active ingredients. The only difference is the combination, and that's what allows them to be patented. So over 70% of drugs introduced in the last 20 years have no major therapeutic benefit over the drugs that already exist on the market. And then the market that's inundated with different brands of similar drugs creates an industry that encourages a lot of sales and advertisement. This can also be seen with allergy drugs and things for high blood pressure and cholesterol. Large pharmaceutical companies also spend millions of dollars on benefits for doctors and hospitals. So they basically try to more or less bribe the doctors in order for them to prescribe their drugs more frequently. And they also spend a lot of money donating to hospitals. Their goal is to influence current doctors and doctors in training, so they'll have clients for future years. In City of Hope National Medical Center received $361 million in donations from large pharmaceutical companies. This is another infographic that kind of shows how much how many physicians are involved in this. So 84% of US physicians receive some kind of benefit from large pharmaceutical companies, and that totals over to more than $27 billion. So there are other forms there's different incentives that can be placed in order to encourage innovation. Any alteration to the current patent system must provide ample incentives for the research and development of drugs. Even though the current drug patent system is a prize model, the monopoly markets fail to incentivize development of drugs that would help the global poor. Again, this goes to show how little regard major drug companies have for the well-being of other people. Instead of creating life-saving drugs, they much rather market things that they know are going to sell well, even if it's something not life-threatening, such as male pattern baldness. Most inclusive reform proposals aim to offer those incentives through a combination of push and pull mechanisms. So push incentives are mostly focuses in the early stages of research. That funding is generally coming through grants or other subsidies. Much of the time it's provided by the government. A prime example is the U.S. National Institutes of Health, which provides medicine research with $30 billion annually. Some of the pull incentives are focused on the later stages of research and development, and the majority of those provide awards and additional funding to innovators that discover and develop important drugs. For example, the polio vaccine, when that was discovered, that entire team from the University of Pittsburgh is still widely renowned. Awards for discoveries give innovators recognition and respect from the public, medical and science communities. Again, if more respect is being paid and more awards are being given to innovators, then that would take some of the incentive away from monetary issues and more towards something of a greater goal. And prize programs include the Longitude Prize for Antibiotics and the European Union Prize for Vaccine Innovation. So essentially, the most important thing is to find other ways to encourage the top scientists to develop life-saving drugs, not only the ones that are going to benefit developed countries and the people who can afford them. And those are my resources, and thank you.